Hi, this is Gemma Church here. In this video, I'll be showing you how to write the introduction to your lab report. The first part of the introduction provides the background and justification for your experiments. In this paragraph, each experiment is briefly described along with the physiological processes involved. Definitions of relevant terms are included. Previous research is cited and summarised with in-text referencing and how the current experiment fits in with these previous studies. It is easiest to write the introduction once the report is finished. So if you are trying to attempt your introduction without having actually completed your experiments, perhaps leave this tutorial until after you've done that. Only include information that is directly related to the rest of the report. So, for example, in your experiments, you don't need to provide in-depth information about how the anatomy of the heart is and how the whole cardiovascular system works. You should introduce all main ideas in the introduction. You can go into more depth in your discussion, but make sure that all of the main points that you're going to discuss in the report are at least introduced here. Include definitions of any specialised terminology or abbreviations. Do this because it gives your reader a greater understanding of what you're talking about, and it also demonstrates to your lecturer that you have a really good understanding of the topic. Things not to do. Don't state that you're going to prove or demonstrate something. Rather, you will be testing and describing. Don't write about previous studies or physiology without referencing the sources. Furthermore, it's also insufficient just to say that a similar experiment was done by Johnston and Pierce in 2007 without detailing the main findings of that similar report. Use this guiding framework to help you write your introduction. In summary, you should write a broad, overarching statement about all of the experiments. Discuss the related physiology of each experiment. Discuss literature you have found about similar experiments. These should be from journal articles. Repeat steps 2 and 3 for each experiment. Finally, at the end, state your aims and hypotheses for each experiment. So, step 1, write a broad overarching statement regarding all of the experiments. I'm going to go through the following beginning of an introduction about frogs' cutaneous or skin resistance to water loss. When I go through it, notice how the introduction is broad but still specific to the thing being tested. So, we'll read this first sentence. Water comprises 70 to 80% of animals' body mass and is vital for processes including thermoregulation, the function of chemical processes, and the transport of wastes and nutrients to and from cells. Note that the author doesn't go into depth about frogs in general, for example, how many there are in Australia, the physiology of the whole frog, etc. Information is specific to the experiments. The following 2 sentences taper it in a bit and become a little more specific to water loss of a frog. The next thing you should do is introduce the related physiology. You might like to pause the video in a moment just to have a read through for yourself. You should note that the information provided is still only related to frogs' skin resistance to water loss. What the author does now is start discussing how the frog's body works with relation to water loss, skin resistance, and bodily functions. In your experiments, you might like to use your Marib textbook as a starting reference. So explain why heart rate might change as a response to the condition you subjected the body to. Always back this up with a reference. Next, you should discuss literature you found about similar experiments. These should be from a journal. Answer these questions. How was it similar to your own experiment? What was their main result? Is the aim of your experiment to repeat a similar experiment or do something different? will you expect a similar result to the one that you're reading about in your own experiment? Let's take a look at this example. For starters, we've cited the experiment from a journal here, Young et al. In 2005. Next, we discuss the main finding. We then go on to discuss how it is similar or different to our own experiment. And then finally, we say whether we expect our results to be the same or different to Young's. You'll then need to repeat steps 2 and 3 for each experiment. So to recap, that was discuss the related physiology, and then discuss literature you have found about similar experiments from a journal. Finally, you need to state the aim and hypothesis for each experiment at the end of the introduction. It's fine to have one overarching aim that includes all of the experiments, but remember you need to have one hypothesis for each experiment. If you haven't yet watched the Aims and Hypothesis guide, please do so now.